Primavera Avocados is back for the spring and summer season. Grown on a family ranch in Southern California since 1979, these avocados are hand-picked and delivered to your door in perfect condition. You can order a box or sign up for a subscription to save money. Each box includes 4 pounds or 8 to 10 avocados delivered to your door. Order at primaveraavocados.com, Primavera avocados.com. Use promo code TASTE at checkout to get 10% off your order. These avocados are only in season through July, so order now.
It's almost like a hack.
Yeah.
It's like if you take tomatoes and you grate them and you season them with salt and garlic and you put some chili and olive oil, you have literally one of the most flavorful, bright, flavor bomb condiments that you could put on literally anything and make it taste delicious.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Eden Grinshpan is a Canadian chef and television host based in Toronto, Ontario. She has hosted Top Chef Canada since 2017 and is the author of a very cool new book, Tahini Baby. On this episode, we talk about Eden's career on and off the television. We also dig into her New York City restaurant, the good, the bad, and the labna of it all, and how she developed her unique recipe style and vibe. I love talking with Eden, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Eden Grinshpan, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I want to ask you, you're in New York for a few days. Where do you go first? What are your spots here?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I've lived in New York for almost 14 years. Now I go between like Toronto and New York. I spend a lot of time in the Lower East Side. I think that was my neighborhood right when I moved here, and there's something about it that just makes me feel like I'm really doing it when I'm there. So I'd probably the last couple times I've gone straight to Scar's Pizza.
Yeah.
And just picked up a slice, and I just like quietly eat my pizza in peace, and then I shop.
Yeah.
In that neighborhood.
It's great. That street is good.
Oh, my God. They have everything I want and more. So I definitely head to that neighborhood. And then where else do I go? I have my staples. Like, I'm a big fan of Bread's Bakery. I always bring a babka back to the family.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It's like really, it's tough. When everyone asks me, where do I eat? I'm like,
it's a little bit of you have a paralysis when you get that question. Well, let's talk about some more restaurants and just in general talk about food because your homeland, Canada.
Yeah.
Wow. I just got back from Victoria, British Columbia.
Oh, wow.
And
Beautiful.
I had incredible food there.
Yeah.
No, the food is great in Victoria, contrary to what some people may say. But it's fresh in the mind, so I wanted to ask you, Canada has incredible foodways that we never talk about on the show. Even with Canadian chefs, we just don't get there. Explain why Canadian food is so special.
Oh, that's such a good question. So aside from being a cookbook author, I'm also the host of Top Chef Canada.
Yeah.
So I get the privilege of getting to taste food from chefs that come all across the country. And I think, especially living in Toronto, growing up, Toronto's, I think, the most multicultural city in the world.
Yeah.
So that was always something that was like my proudest, thing that I clinged on to my entire childhood. I thought it was just it is such an incredible thing to be a part of. So I really think the diversity and it's not just that, the food that you get feels very authentic to a lot of the cultures that have moved there. And so you get to taste food from all over the world, which I think is so fun. And you get to go on different journeys, especially I'm just taking it to Toronto. There are neighborhoods. You know how in New York you walk down the street and you have a different kind of cuisine right next to each other. We have streets like that, but in Toronto they have neighborhoods. So you really get a flavor for a culture and a cuisine based off of going to different neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And they really feel incredibly authentic. And people really celebrate their culture there. And I think that is probably one of the greatest gifts.
So you published your 2020 book, Eating Out Loud, here at Clarkson Potter, and we'll talk about your new book, Tahini Baby. Awesome title.
Thank you.
What do you want to say in cookbooks? Like, what drives you to write these?
You know, the food that I cook, very much inspired by my life, my travels. I really connected with it. Actually, in my early 20s, I had a pop-up in New York City at a place in Williamsburg called Lucy Rouge. And that's when everything really connected because I grew up eating these flavors, spending my summers in Tel Aviv, very Middle Eastern, Mediterranean inspired. And I had a pop-up. I forget how long ago it was, but when I started putting this food out and I started seeing the response, it was a huge, wake-up moment for me. And from that pop-up, I actually ended up opening a restaurant in New York City. I had a restaurant for a whole year.
Yeah, I saw that in the prep notes.
Whole
wow.
year.
Well, if you can't make it a year, ...
You know what? I'm going to tell you, I am so proud of that restaurant, and
Yeah.
I learned so much. And it was truly, as much as it was, it's really sad to close your doors. It was such an amazing learning experience. And to be honest, the food was so well received. So it wasn't like one of those things where it was like, it was bad and we closed the doors. No, our rent was so ridiculous. We just couldn't make that rent. So,
and that's a common refrain.
Exactly. Yeah. So after, from that experience, I actually sold Eating Out Loud. So because people loved the food so much at Des, I was able to sell this book. And I was so inspired by the response. And obviously, I think the response was so positive because I was really excited about these flavors, excited about these recipes. And I think what really separates, the way I cook and my cookbooks and all the recipes I put out online is the ease. I really like to make food that is approachable. I like to make food that is not precious, not pretentious. It's everyday food. These are flavors and techniques and ingredients that you can reach for on the daily. And it's food that makes you feel good. It's feel-good food.
No, it feels that way when you're reading through it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you have a lot of beautiful grains and salads and dips and beautiful, easy breads to put together. And I don't know about you, but, I want to sit down to a table filled with all those things.
Tell me about Tahini Baby. I mean, where the title, it's not Tahini Cookbook. It's more of a lifestyle and a point of view. And what is interesting about it is it's meat-free. There's no meat in it. And I see a lot of books, and I love most of them. But I would say when you do meat-free, it can be restrictive. But I did not feel that in this book. I felt really good about the reading through your head notes, and I have plenty of questions about specific recipes. But how did you get to your meat-free journey?
Well, after Eating Out Loud came out, a lot of the interest was really focused on my salads and grains and veg dishes and dips, as I said earlier. People want to eat like that. People want to have bounty and feel good and not eat your meal and want to take a nap. You want to eat your food and you want to go and dance. Yeah. So I felt like there was a lot of energy towards that kind of particular cuisine. And my editor actually approached me and said, why don't you look into writing a vegetarian cookbook? And I was like, I absolutely love that. And also during that particular moment, my husband and I kind of we had this aha moment at one point. We were having dinner and we're like, we're eating mostly vegetarian now. And that was nothing planned. We did not plan this. And so I thought there was something to that where it was one of these, we didn't plan it. We didn't feel like anything was missing. We felt like we were eating really delicious, satisfying food, and the meat just wasn't a part of it. Yeah. And so Tahini Baby was born because of that. And I also was excited to go on this journey of how do I put together a book of 100+ recipes that are all vegetarian? And to be honest, it was pretty straightforward and really easy to take a lot of those ideas and ingredients and recipes and translate them into a vegetarian version if it wasn't already that way.
Well, the travel you speak of is a lot of it is through the lens of Israel, and I feel like you call out many restaurants there, which I love. Also it just pays tribute to a foodways that's really, really, multicultural. And I think you do a really nice job. And, I just love this grated tomato. I want to segue to one recipe in particular, because if you visit Israel, you're seeing grated tomatoes everywhere, incredible tomatoes there. And tell me, why is this recipe, so foundational to the book?
Well, I think it's the perfect example of the way I like to cook.
Yeah.
And there's 3 ingredients in that recipe.
Exactly. It's so simple, right?
It's simple. It's almost like a hack.
Yeah.
It's if you take tomatoes and you grate them and you season them with salt and garlic and you put some chili and olive oil, you have literally one of the most flavorful, bright, flavor bomb condiments that you could put on literally anything and make it taste delicious. And this is obviously inspired by a Yemen fresh kind of a tomato salsa that you see served with jachnun and malawach. And this sauce just started popping up in so many different dishes in different restaurants. And even my mother-in-law would put a big jar of it on her table for Shabbat. And it just went with everything. You wanted to put it on every element of food on that table. So I really wanted to incorporate it and just showcase there are a couple recipes in this book where I was like, can I even call this a recipe? Because it is so there's a simplicity to it, but there's a brilliance to it as well that once people make that, they're going to be I know I'm going to take this to the next level.
Yeah, and you're going to have grated tomatoes to put in for a stock. You can use it at the table as a condiment. It's a really good idea. Do the tomatoes even have to be good? I'm asking you a simple question.
To be honest, I prefer for us to eat as seasonal as possible, but if you're not going to, just make sure that you check for seasoning because, you're putting garlic, you're putting a nice juicy pinch of salt, you're putting a beautiful olive oil, hopefully, and that will definitely elevate and make it shine.
Well, I stopped on the page after I read this head note, I was like, fuck yeah. You give a tribute to Habasta, a restaurant that is, in the shadow of Shu Carmel. It's a place that I have talked about on the show. I love this restaurant. It's one of my favorite in the world.
It's so good.
It's so good. And so tell us a little bit about the restaurant, because from your point of view. And second, you have this salad of celery leaf and cherries and herbs that I remember vividly from dining there. It's amazing.
It's literally, again, one of those, it's this brilliant flavor combination that wouldn't come to you naturally, or it wouldn't come to me naturally, if anything. And I had it, and it was a light bulb moment where I was unbelievable. Just obviously, a lot of it had to do with the quality of the produce. And the thing that's beautiful about Habasta, which is a restaurant, it's literally right off of the Shuka Carmel, which is this beautiful market that when I lived there, it's packed. It's not just produce. There's small little restaurants, hidden little hummus spots. And my favorite Turkish barekas are just hidden right off the top of the shuk.
Oh, I know exactly what that is.
I grew up eating those.
So great.
So that I grew up in that neighborhood because my uncle owns a wallet store that was on Schenken.
Oh, cool.
So I literally grew up on that street. And Habasta just became this restaurant that it's a little bit more elevated. They cook only seasonally from the market. They go shop in the market. They cook everything right from the market. And I just think their chefs are brilliant. And I think their flavor combinations are so on point and they're incredibly inspiring. And I had this salad that was simply chilies, cilantro, and cherry. And fresh cherries.
Yes.
And I took that concept and I obviously added a little bit more herbs and some celery, some crunch, but that was definitely the inspo and I dream about it every day.
It's a great idea to just take, fresh, cherries if you're in the summertime in North America, or you can, take whatever cherries you have.
Well, I said you can actually make it in the winter with pomegranate.
Pomegranate, yes.
I think it's finding a beautiful, tart, bright, juicy fruit.
Yeah.
But I think it's really also you could play around with it even. You could put other fresh fruit. I think anything actually would be beautiful. Some peaches in there.
Yeah, apricots would be great.
Yeah, I think it's just a concept of it could be enjoyed this way in a more savory kind of a spicy way with these herbs. And also playing with herbs not just as a garnish, but using herbs.
And eating the herbs and like
and
using full bunches in
full
recipes.
bunches. Like
yeah.
take away the lettuce leaf and use herbs like a lettuce leaf. I
Yeah.
think that concept's also something that I always like just love to do and love to add into my books.
Well, you're giving permission to use more than we're used to for herbs. I think we get those like little tiny, we've all gotten them, like those cilantro, those like little, like, 3-inch long
So sad.
plastic. It is sad.
So
containers.
sad.
You
have to buy like 30 of those
exactly.
to make like one tabbouleh.
Yeah, exactly. Go find a grocer that has like full cilantro or
100%.
full parsleys. Okay, on to charred Brussels sprouts. Now, for some, this is the friends. For others, this is the enemy. Brussels are quite polarizing. I call it out because pomegranate butter, new spin. You have a new spin on a Brussels sprout. Pretty cool. Good job.
Well, it's because, to be honest, I wasn't a Brussels sprout lover. And I was like, I can't be this person anymore. Like, I was mad at myself. I couldn't accept this. I was like, there can't be a vegetable. Actually, okay, there is one vegetable I don't like, and it's green pepper.
We'll get to that at the end of the show.
We will go past that. But I was like, I can't be a hater of Brussels sprouts. I know that there's more for me here. So I started playing around with pomegranate molasses, which is like, again, it may seem a little bit more of a unique ingredient, but once you commit to that ingredient and you start playing around with it and you start realizing the power, it's like tart with a little bit of sweetness. It's essentially just pomegranate juice reduced until it's like thick and sticky and sour, and it's so delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So when I threw that onto the charred Brussels sprouts with the butter, it's just like rich and sweet. And I add fresh pomegranates on there, and it's just fun to eat. It's a truly delicious dish.
And you have all the ingredients. Like, for real, you've got your like Palm Wonderful bottle. You can get palm molasses too and use that.
Yeah, it's easy to find now.
Find now.
This is the thing. I find that even from writing Eating Out Loud to Tahini Baby, things have, especially this particular kind of cuisine, it's so popular.
Yeah.
So you can find a lot of these, I think, what you would think harder to find ingredients. So much easier. They're so much easier to find now.
It's amazing. And we got the internet.
That's true.
Amazon.
That shit.
Yeah, Amazon that shit, or buy it at the local grocer who does an online retail business. All right, I'm going to move on to something that the shroom shawarma. Now, I'm like skeptical of doing a shawarma with vegetables because, the shawarma is what it is. It's like a singular food. Now, you have made this a point to say that you do not miss the meat. Eden, please tell me why, because I am still skeptical.
Mushrooms are like obvious. Like they are the obvious choice for the meat, like sub, because there's like an earthiness. Texturally, they're a little bit more of a bite to them. So you have that kind of great mouthfeel that you would get. And the way I season the mushrooms, it's actually super, super simple. I've seen so many different variations. I really went back and forth on trying to get everyone to throw it on a skewer or to create that shawarma style. And then I was like, let's think about home cooks right now. And let's think about trying to get this into our mouths as fast as possible by creating as much flavor and depth. And so I simply marinate these mushrooms and I give them a really nice hard sear on the stove or on a grill. And just by layering the right condiments, throwing them on the right, like I suggest putting on laffa. I have an amazing laffa recipe in this book, which is Iraqi pita. It's flat. It's got a nice chew to it. It's actually quite easy to prepare. I'm making it on the stove.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like one of those fun things. Like I envisioned people would make everything like separate components and then have their friends or family over and like let people make their own laffa and it's like get their hands in there.
What's the mushroom choice for this recipe?
I think I used oyster mushrooms.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I think oyster mushrooms. I also think like you can keep them whole, you can tear them up, give them more of like that kind of pull apart, fall apart, like meat texture that I've seen people do. It's just, I think mushrooms are so versatile.
Yeah.
But you have to make sure that you like sear them nice so they get nice and caramelized. Don't overcrowd your pan.
Yeah, space it out. That's exactly right.
Don't wash your mushrooms ever.
Yeah, like truly, it's scary. But like trust Eden here. You don't need to wash your mushrooms.
No, you know what? I have a mushroom brush, which is like kind of fancy.
Funny.
I got it at a cooking school
Yeah.
in France, and I was like, I'm getting a mushroom brush. You can use any kind of little like, pastry brush you have on hand, or just use a paper towel.
Yeah.
And just wipe your mushrooms.
Wipe it off. You're going to get any of that schmutz that's on there that you're scared of, but really you're cooking it.
Yeah.
You're cooking
fine.
it. You're fine. You're good. All right. On to M25. Great restaurant. Kind of a meat-centric restaurant. It's like a butcher shop.
Yeah.
Why is this in a plant-based vegetarian cookbook?
I think I think that's part of this experience that I also thought was so interesting because a lot of meat dishes really inspired a lot of these vegetarian dishes.
Of course.
And for me, I think what I was trying to accomplish with Tahini Baby was I've seen vegetarian books that I was like, this is a vegetarian book. Like I went out of my way not to have any of those processed meat substitutes. Like I didn't really go out of my way. I don't use them. So I was like, how do I capture all of this, like these recipe ideas, these flavors, the smokiness, the juiciness without feeling like, oh, I'm missing this meat. Because I do think that there are going to be a lot of people that eat a lot of meat that are just trying to like substitute for the, I guess, veg version. But I wanted these to stand on their own, and I took inspiration from a lot of those actual traditional dishes, and I put my spin on it. And I think, my husband, he's a big meat eater. I wanted to write on the back of the book, Ito approved. But he never commented once about, I wish this was meat. Yeah. These are standalone dishes that are just delicious on their own.
Yeah.
But I did pull a lot of inspiration from
like a butcher shop restaurant.
From a butcher shop in Tel Aviv.
What's that recipe?
It's arais, I think. That's the recipe. Yeah. And arais is traditionally like a ground meat, like a lamb that gets seasoned, and then it's stuffed into a pita, and the whole thing gets grilled. And like the meat cooks in the pita, and the meat gets absorbed into the pita while it cooks. And so I made my own version, but I put cauliflower and mushrooms, and there's walnuts in there. And it's so flavorful and so delicious. My husband actually lost his mind over this.
It's a cool dish. I can't wait to make it. And
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. You add herbs to challah and use olive oil. I mean, bless you. That's
so
like
good.
You're brave to like to muck up not in a negative way. Yeah, exactly. But tell us a little bit about like what inspired you to do this, to cook with olive oil and challah.
Well, first of all, I've seen over the years a lot of people that inspired me in the culinary industry. In Israel, I've been weaving lots of herbs, fresh herbs, and I just loved how like natural and organic it looked and it tasted. And I do think, again, I use herbs all the time, not just, because they're beautiful and they have a beautiful essence, but they can really impart so much flavor and a really unique kind of identity to the dish that it's being baked or cooked into. And I just loved, first of all, olive oil is always like my preferred cooking oil, and it adds such an amazing, like, obviously depends on what olive oil you're using.
You got to use the good stuff, right?
But
obviously.
Use the good stuff, and it brings such like a deep kind of richness. It like almost complements that egginess even more.
Yeah.
So I found that the olive oil with the challah was like such a perfect combination. And then I weave in like herbs like fresh sage and fresh oregano. And that particular version is fantastic. I brush the herbs with oil as well to get them crispy, and I finish it with a lot of Malden sea salt. But the concept is also, like, I wanted to sell the concept. So I give you full permission to go to the farmer's market and grab all the herbs. You can use chives. You can use chive flowers. You've seen all that beautiful focaccia art.
Yeah.
and weave that into your challah and like see what kind of magic comes from it and give it like a new spin.
I love it. I follow a couple Israeli challah braiders on Instagram.
Oh, it's like a real art form.
Really nice.
Yeah,
stuff.
and it's like, listen, challah is like the perfect base to play around with.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's a beautiful thing.
I actually take that recipe and I also give you an option to make the challah kachapuri.
Oh, I saw that. That's cool.
So you can
Kachapuris
just
are amazing.
because the challah makes 2 loaves.
Yeah.
So you can make a challah, you can make kachapuri.
Kachapuri. I got 2 meals there. This recipe really struck me. The egg fried bulgur.
Oh, Edo. All Edo, my husband.
Edo's call here. I mean, it's like you're tossing it. It's like wok fried rice. I'm getting
With
that
bulgur.
vibe with bulgur. Tell us about it.
Yeah, my husband, like I would spend just hours sitting and thinking and writing out ideas.
Yeah.
And my husband, like, first of all, tabbouleh is one of his all-time favorite, like salads, great grain salads. And so bulgur is obviously, that's kind of like the base of that is very near and dear to him. And he actually was the one that asked me to create this.
No
He was
way.
like, you need to make like a bulgur, like egg fried bulgur, like a rice. And I was like, that is such a brilliant idea. So I made it a little bit more like spring fresh with like fava beans and asparagus. And it is so delicious because bulgur is so fluffy and nutty. And I think it's a grain that needs to be more popular.
Yeah.
And so by taking that and like it's such a simple preparation and serve it with my cheat, that harissa recipe that I have in this book that is so dynamite and literally requires like zero energy to put that thing together. It is so good. So serve it with some harissa, some garlicky tahina, and you are literally laughing.
It's amazing, the technique, and I can't wait to make it. I mean, simply make the bulgur, toss it in a wok with eggs, and put the harissa and tahini on it.
It's so good.
Super good.
It's another example of how like approachable and like straightforward these recipes are and how bold and flavorful they are too. And I think that that's really exciting for me.
It's a great collection. So we being food media, folks who write about food, forget about the final recipe in a book, but not here. And on page 300, you have a recipe for all-day fennel and sesame shortbread cookies. You, plead your allegiance to fennel throughout the book. You're a huge fan.
Oh.
You're like the biggest fan. How does fennel work into a shortbread? I love this recipe.
You know what? You're going to laugh, but the first time I had a fennel and sesame seed kind of sweet cookie was at Habasta.
Oh, yeah.
Did I? I don't know if I put that in there. If I didn't, that's too bad. But I had that. I was with my friend and we ordered we were like, let's just get something light and sweet at the end. Like nothing. I don't want to commit to too much.
Because you got to go to Art Gelato around the corner.
Exactly.
Art Gelato, best gelato in the world.
Because we're not done here. We're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So with our mint tea, we got this beautiful cookie and the flavor combination was just so incredible. And I also spent a lot of time in India and there's a lot of fennel seed, like candies that I've had.
Oh, yeah.
And I just love the anise sweetness. And this particular shortbread obviously has tahini as it needs to. So the flavor combination of the sesame and the tahini and that fennel, and it's lightly sweet. It's not too overwhelming. I don't like when my desserts are like overly sweet because I want to eat a lot of it and I don't want to get sick. I don't want to I want to be able to eat more versus eat less and eat too sweet. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, of course I know what you mean.
So I'm like, let's not be too sweet so we can have more of it. And the fennel seed, just it's this gorgeous, light anisey flavor. It's not like licorice. Don't be afraid. It's it's kind of a sophisticated combination. And I think once you have it, it's something that you just can't get out of your mind. And it's special. And make this, have this with coffee in the afternoon, have this with tea at the end of dinner. And just, enjoy. They're really special.
Okay, another fennel question. My wife, Tamar, it is her enemy.
Which part? The seed or the fennel, the vegetable?
All of the above, the entire universe. So as a fennel expert and as a chef, what is the best fennel gateway recipe or preparation to get Tamar back on the fennel
First of all, make these cookies.
I think that might be it.
Make these cookies tomorrow.
Yeah.
I actually have a bunch of fennel preparation.
I know you do.
I have this amazing salad.
Yeah.
Because fennel, the vegetable, is really fascinating. When it's raw, first of all, it's my kid's favorite vegetable.
Yeah.
I take out a fennel and they're like, just slice it and give it to me, mama.
Wow.
Like, that's it. They just want raw fennel.
Yeah.
I've trained them good.
You really have. It's more of a conditioning right there because, wow.
That's their vegetable of choice because I make a lot of fennel salads.
Yeah.
And it has like a light anise flavor to it. And it doesn't completely break down the second you put lemon juice on it. It actually holds its shape a little bit better. And I have this halloumi citrus and fennel salad with Aleppo honey and mint.
Very cool.
And you get this like steaky saltiness from the halloumi. You get that bright, crispy, crunchy anise, like gentle anise flavor from the fennel. The citrus, like this is actually the perfect winter salad because all of these things here like would just add so much to the table. But it feels like sunshine. It feels like summer on a plate.
It also doesn't feel like the fennel will be astringent in any ways when having honey and...
Exactly. Like we drizzle over just simple like Aleppo mixed with honey. And I feel like the honey, the sweetness, really kind of mellows everything out. And also the acidity from the citrus. There's just a lot. It's juicy. It's sweet, it's spicy. There's a lot happening. And then you get mint. Come on.
It's a great recipe.
It's great.
That.
And I have a fennel tagine as well.
Oh, cool.
I think that one's really cool. And it has all those like, I call them like the cheat flavor.
Because you're cooking it down long, right? In a tagine?
Well, yeah, we cook it down, but like I add in obviously olives and raisins and preserved lemons. And again, cilantro, or if you don't like cilantro, you can use parsley. But there's a lot of beautiful spices. And you have those like preserved lemons and olives. I find those like cheat ingredients because they're so flavorful. Yeah. And there's very few things you need to do once you add them in. I'm like, those flavors are just like, they're just great.
Yeah, New York Chouk does a great preserved lemon. I love that company.
So good.
Great stuff.
I also have a recipe for preserved lemon.
Well, yeah, you can make it yourself. Sorry, like this is...
You can make it yourself. Also, I do want to say I have a cheat preserved lemon trick in this book because a lot of people ask me where to get them. So I gave people a really easy way to quickly make it at home.
It's very, very good. On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid-fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
Yes. Let's go.
The best fruit.
Cherries.
Yeah.
Peaches. A really good peach.
Cherries and peaches. I'm hearing too. That's good.
Yeah. Sorry.
There's
a lot more, but I'm trying to reel it in.
You already said this in the earlier part of the interview, but I'm going to say it again. What is the worst vegetable?
Green peppers.
Yeah.
I can't get behind them. Like, there are very few recipes that I put that benefit from them in my mind. I don't know. There's a block there.
Yeah.
They're just so bitter.
Doesn't add much.
No. I just never think, I'm never like, you know what this needs? This needs some green pepper.
Even pizza, I just can't hang there.
No, absolutely no. No.
What is your typical breakfast?
I go through phases, but I have to say I can be a creature of habit. I always make a big jar of granola. I go through different kinds. There's always tahini in it.
Yeah.
So I usually do like a seasonal fruit, some really yummy yogurt, granola, maple syrup, hemp seeds maybe.
Getting them all. It's nice.
Yeah. I'm like, I need to start my day off on the right foot.
Yeah. Protein. Some grains into that. The best dessert.
Cheesecake.
Wow. And you have a great recipe in there. I saw.
I have my mom's recipe.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is, at this point, like I'm basically made of this cheesecake. I'd say it in the head note, this cheesecake, like my mom, she's not really like much of a cook. But this cheesecake was the thing for us.
Yeah.
And whenever it's a birthday, she makes a cheesecake. I used to go to camp growing up, and I loved it so much that she would make me my own cheesecake.
Oh, that's cute.
And she would bring me my own cheesecake. And I would literally like sit in my bunk bed and try and savor it, like no fridge in sight. I'm literally just in my bunk eating cheesecake by myself with my friends around me. And they were like, I call it my camp cake in the book,
I think. So cute.
But this cheesecake, people have been asking me for this recipe for years. And so I'm thrilled to say that we finally are giving it to you in this book.
Into that. Restaurant you wish you could bring back from the dead.
Oh, yeah, I would have to say it's probably a restaurant in Tel Aviv called Orna Ve'ela. And I just grew up going there, and they closed their doors, and everything they made was fantastic. They had these like sweet potato pancakes with this like loaded chive sour cream, and it was so freaking good.
The dairy is so dope. So good.
Unbelievable. And I found out later on in life that my husband was a barista there.
No way.
I know. And I was like, hot. You are so hot now. You were hot before, but you worked at Orna Ve'ela, and I am like locked in.
It's like you're renewing your vows when you hear that.
It was literally the coolest place.
Yeah.
And he was making like cappuccinos. Maybe he made me a cappuccino.
Have you ever done the math? Do you think you were in the same space at the same time?
We do that a bunch, and we have definitely crossed paths at least a handful of times. I don't know how I didn't like spot him in a room.
Yeah.
Because he's like 100% my type.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely have been at least like one or two parties.
Yeah.
Or like bars, restaurants.
Sweet. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
City?
Yeah.
So
I know it's tough.
I would say Tel Aviv. And I would say my husband and I went to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say probably Tokyo.
Yeah.
I need more time there, though. Like, for the amount of time I had there, it blew my mind. So I feel like if I had more days there, I would probably never come home.
Yeah.
And
now,
also,
get a Top Chef. You guys get to travel at the end of the series. It's part of the gig.
I would make them take me to Japan.
Yeah,
Let's
do
go.
Japan.
But I do want to say, also anywhere in Italy.
Yeah.
Italy has my heart, too. I'm like obsessed.
When's the next season of Top Chef?
We are actually shooting the next season in June.
Okay.
And it's probably going to come out in the fall.
Okay, that's how it works there.
Yeah.
How long is the shoot? Is it like a couple weeks?
It's a month.
Yeah.
It's a month. It's extreme. So every time we book a season, I'm like, I'm sorry, honey. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, because I get literally 3 days off.
Yeah.
So, and like it takes 2 days to film one episode. The first day is the quick fire. And that's a shorter day. So I get to come home, hopefully for dinner and like homework and bath. And thank God I have that. Yeah. But then the second day, I'm like home at like midnight. It's like they're really long days.
Mm-hmm. You like it though?
I love it. I started in the industry in television.
Yeah.
So to get to be a part of like such a major show, it's a true honor. Like really love it.
Yeah, I gotta catch some episodes. I have never watched Top Chef.
We gotta get you some episodes.
Yeah, I gotta check it out.
I'm gonna be on Top Chef, their new season,
the U.S. version,
because they film in Canada, and they asked me to come because I host Top Chef Canada.
Obviously, you're gonna get the invite.
So, but like warning, I feel like my eyebrow makeup in that episode is like next level. So I just
like
want
next level good.
Next level.
Oh,
so I just want you to know. I know. We're in on this together.
You're like
okay,
preemptively saying that you know and that you can leave the comments in the trash.
Literally, just know that I know.
How does that happen? Like, was it just a makeup chair?
You know what? I've done this for so long. It was like on me. It was on me. I have to take full blame.
You started tweaking it?
No. What happened was they put me in a makeup chair and then they were like, okay, time to go to set right now. And I was like, like I didn't even get to look in the mirror. So like we're filming and then I got a glimpse of myself in the mirror after we filmed the first part. And I was like,
hey.
Wow, those are some brows. Who knows? Listen, the lights.
Angles.
I just want to say this. Maybe like the lights are so strong on set, so maybe they look normal.
Maybe they look better than normal. Maybe it's the best eyes you've had on television in your history.
Maybe this is my Brooke Shields moment, and I didn't even know it was happening. But if it is happening, just know I know.
I'm going to tune in. I'm going to tune into that episode.
Please do.
It's a good episode. The food was pretty good.
Yeah, it was excellent. Yeah. And, Kristen is unbelievable. Like, we had such a great time together. I'm very good friends with Gail Simmons. So just to get to spend that time with her. And I got to finally meet Tom.
Yeah.
Who's
Intimidating guy.
So sweet.
No, I know.
Oh my God. So sweet. Poor guy. I talked his head off. Like, hopefully he walked away liking me. No, but he is so nice. Everyone, that entire crew is unbelievable. And I felt like it was such an honor to be a part of that.
Well, I know you signed like a million documents. You can't even comment on this statement, but I'm pulling for Katrina. I'm just saying, Katrina from LA, I'm pulling for you. We'll see. You're shaking your head very silently.
I'm not saying a word.
You are not.
You know what? I probably know as much as you know at this point. So, but I do know that it was just it's like, that show's amazing. Like, period. That show is like, they've done such an amazing job. So,
well, it's getting more popular by the year,
Yeah.
which is not how television usually works.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like, it never happens like that.
Never.
So they have that thing. They just got to run with it.
And the Canadians are into it too.
Of course. Listen, I think Top Chef Canada is like one of the number one primetime shows in Canada. It's the most prestigious. It's literally the most prestigious culinary competition in Canada.
Oh, for sure.
So people come and they are coming to win the title. The prize is insane. Like, it's a really big deal. So when they come, they are like, they're putting their jobs on hold. They're leaving their families. Like, this is a really big moment and an investment in time and also like their careers. Like, if you think about it, it's so interesting because obviously everyone that comes to compete is at the top of their game. But what people don't really talk about is like when you walk into a studio, you are under crazy lighting. You're in a space you've never cooked in before.
Oh.
You're cooking for your idols. Like, these are icons. We get people like Danielle Boulud. We get like the best of the best chefs to come in and judge. And like, there's a lot of pressure. And we give them, when I say you have 30 minutes, they have 30 minutes.
Yeah, there's no cutting corners there.
No.
And people, I'm sure, freeze and it's embarrassing. I'm sure people excel.
I couldn't do it.
No.
If they were like, cook, I'd be like, what is cooking?
I know, right? It's crazy. They're so talented on the show. I can't wait to check out Canada and the U.S. I know the U.S. is going to be coming out soon. Last question, your favorite sandwich?
These are... I don't know why I want to say emotional questions.
Yes. Well, food is emotional.
You know, I really love a banh mi. I always want to have a banh mi. Yeah. I spent time backpacking Vietnam. I have really fond memories. So I would say a banh mi is definitely like a sandwich that I would like go out of my way to really like search for and eat.
Love that.
Yeah, I think that's the answer.
That's a great answer, Eden. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing.
Jenna Hemshaw, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
I'm excited to chat about your book, A Grain, a Green, a Bean.
Yeah.
I love saying that
It's fun, right?
Good job with the title.
I do not usually, there was a pretty long stretch of time between my book Power Plates and my last book, which was called The Vegan Week. And so I do not usually like create books quickly, but this one is sort of coming out not too long after The Vegan Week, at least in sort of publishing time.
Yeah.
And part of it is just because like the title had been in my mind for a long time, and I was like, it rolls off the tongue pretty nicely.
Yeah,
so
it's really nice. Before we get into the book, I just always want to ask, where do you dine out in New York? You live here.
I live here, and I love eating out. My answers are not like original. I really like Italian food, so I go to a lot of the same really good Italian places that many New Yorkers like to go to. I live downtown, so I really like Via Carota. They have a vegan lemon risotto, or like a lemon risotto that is vegan as is, that I adore. I like going to Pasquale Jones for pizza a whole lot.
I haven't heard that one in a minute, and I really like that choice.
Their pizza is fantastic. I feel like, Una Pizza Napolitana is also not far from me, and their like marinara pizza, just their like red pizza is perfection. But I think Pasquale Jones is like a little like it's not under the radar in that a lot of people like it, but I think people don't talk enough about how great their pizza actually is. And they have like a great wine list. It's relatively close to me, so I love going there.
Yeah. Okay, on the topic of pizza though, I mean you're a plant-based author. Let me ask you about the best vegan slices in New York.
So I will say, like, I'm a little bit more of like, I prefer Neapolitan pizza, and I'm a little bit of a purist. Like a pizza that's just because a lot of places that do Neapolitan style have just like a pizza marinara on the menu, and that is like an absolute anchor of their selection.
Yeah.
And that is my favorite. Like that would be my platonic ideal of a pizza experience. And I would rather have that than like a slice with vegan cheese or like a plant-based slice that has like a bunch of plant-based toppings. I would rather just have like perfect dough and perfect passata and olive oil. But when I do want a slice, Scars is really good. They have a bunch of vegan options. So there's that. Lucia of Soho also has like, so they have like a red pizza that you can either order in like a whole pie, and I will do that and eat it as the week goes by. Or I think you might be able to get it by the slice. I'm not sure, but they also do a really nice job. And that's basically just like a New York style slice that's just tomato and dough.
I'm hearing a lot of tomato pies. I mean, do you mess with the plant-based cheeses on pizza?
If I made it at home, I probably would. Like because my dough is not fantastic.
Yeah.
In order for something that simple to be that good, your dough actually has to be like fantastic. Yeah. And I am not a pizza maker.
Pizzaiolo.
I am not a pizzaiolo. When I make it at home, it's like on a sheet pan and it's fine. It's serviceable.
Yeah.
So then I would probably doctor it up with a bunch of vegan cheese and like maybe some, roasted veggies or something to make it more special. But if I'm eating out and the person who's making the pizza really knows what they're doing, I would kind of rather just have the simplest expression. Shine. Yep, let the bread shine. I'm a big bread lover, so.
Tell me, is there a good plant-based cheese out there available?
So my favorite is from a brand called Good Planet. And they make shreds and slices that are olive oil based. I love them. I think they melt well. I think from a sort of like nutrition perspective, I think the nutrition is a little bit of an upgrade over some of the other vegan cheeses on the market. That's for like melty, stretchy cheese. Mm-hmm. In the realm of more like cheese you would serve with crackers, there are sort of like cashew and almond-based cheeses that are pretty good. I think they're getting actually increasingly great as time goes by. They're a little pricey. So is buying nuts and making it yourself. So sometimes I would rather just go buy it. Yeah. And those can be really fun too. I think a lot of people, when they become plant-based, cheese is the main thing that they're worried about missing. It's the main thing that they miss for a while. I was in that camp. But as time goes by, I think I sort of I don't think about cheese all that much. The plant-based cheeses are sort of like a fun novelty for me, but I wouldn't say that I'm like, they're not like a huge part of my habit.
Yeah, it's not like your go-to after work is a slice of plant-based cabbage.
Yeah, no. That's not like my snack.
That's not your one. No. All right. I have to ask, I've never had a registered dietitian on the show. Yeah. So just like broadly and just for my interest, what is the job? Like, what do you do as a registered dietitian? I know there's multitudes and it's not one thing, but what is your job all about?
Yeah, there are a ton of different ways to sort of enter the field. I've had different roles as a dietitian. I still actually kind of wear two hats. So I see some clients privately, and there are dietitians who are just in private practice, and that's what they do. And then there's also like a huge number of clinical roles available to dietitians in hospital settings, clinic settings, outpatient settings, across a lot of different kind of like fields in medicine. So I work for a hospital system and I'm a renal dietitian. So I work with dialysis patients. So it's really kidney specific. Although a lot of my patients also have other health challenges that they deal with as well as being on dialysis. So I end up seeing a lot of different stuff, which is great, and kind of working with a lot of different health challenges. There are also dietitians who work in ICUs. There are dietitians who work in pediatrics. There are dietitians who work in oncology, endocrinology. So in pretty much any part of the healthcare system, you will find nutrition professionals who are working in both inpatient and outpatient settings. And then there are dietitians who go into food service, into industry, corporate wellness. I mean, there's a lot that dietitians end up doing.
So on the private side, what does that entail exactly? Do you have like a program? Are you doing consulting one-on-one? How does that work exactly?
So I don't have a program. I think some dietitians do. Like they have a kind of, I think there are dietitians who have like a sort of a philosophy or like a specific approach that they're offering to people. For me, it's like much more personalized because what you learn is that people's relationship with food is very, very individual. The things that people are like challenged with food really varies from person to person. And then the changes that they need to make are so specific to them. I could never offer like a particular approach to any two of the people that I work with. Everyone's so incredibly different. And they come to me for different reasons. They need different things. Their lifestyles are different. Like the kind of constraints of their lifestyle or their schedule are different. So it's really different. But most of the time people feel as though something about their relationship with food is not working. Either that's very sort of like nutritional, like they feel like there is a nutritional gap that needs to be corrected, or there's something about the way they relate to food that is kind of tangled for some reason. Like maybe food is making them anxious. Maybe they have a lot of struggles with body image. Maybe they feel as though they love food, but they don't have enough time for it. They need to create a little bit more space in their lives for food, and they want accountability as they do that. It could be all sorts of things.
Well, I have a bunch of questions about just diet in general, but your own personal journey, just a little bit about how did you enter plant-based, the lifestyle of plant-based?
Yeah, so I stopped eating red meat really pretty young. Never even cared for it much as a kid. Saw Bambi when I was like
triggering. Yeah, it can be bad.
And I had also seen Dumbo was also a movie that had like a sort of like a similar effect on me.
Does Dumbo does one get
no one dies in Dumbo,
Okay.
but Dumbo's mom gets kind of taken away to the circus. And I think those were I see this with time. I wasn't processing this consciously as a kid. But I think those were my first experiences of being like conscious of the way we commodify animals, animal welfare as like a sort of that was like the first time I sort of had a firsthand emotional response to these questions of sort of like how do we treat animals and what role do they play in our society. And I think those movies had a really big impact on me. In both movies, it's an animal's mother who's affected, and I was very close to my mom growing up. I still am. And so I think that they had an impact on me. And I just after the Bambi experience, I really did not want to eat meat anymore. And my mom's Greek. I mean, I don't think it was all that easy for her to accommodate it, but she did and was understanding. And I basically just ate chicken, turkey growing up. Like I continued to eat poultry, but I just wasn't really leaning much toward meat and never really loved fish. So it wasn't a big part of my diet. And then when I was in college, I started leaning more vegetarian. And then after college was when I started getting more interested in veganism. I think at the time I was having like a lot of digestive stuff, which was not actually nutritional. I think I was a young person who was stressed out and figuring out life. I had an eating disorder history that was like carrying over into the present. And I think that I basically was just kind of a stressed out mess. But I had a GI doctor at the time who was like, I don't think you're lactose intolerant, but why don't you try cutting out dairy and like see what happens? And so I did. And it did not fix my GI problems, but it did make me realize how okay my life was without dairy. And I had just read Diet for a New America and Fast Food Nation. And like I was sort of, I was picking up that thread of animal welfare that I had been interested in as a young person. And I sort of was like, I'm not eating dairy. I don't eat a lot of eggs anyway. Like I'm pretty darn close to vegan, and it's not particularly hard for me right now. Why don't I just keep this thing going and like see how it plays out? And I wasn't wearing the label at first, but I just kind of kept going. And over time, I did start
Did
wearing
you
the
feel
label.
anything differently, like physically, after you cut out dairy?
I think if you had asked me at the time, I probably would have told you yes. I think that probably had a lot more to do with like the psychosomatic effect of taking, like I at the time was much more, and this again is because like I had an eating disorder history. I think at the time I was much more health focused than I am now in like a very particular kind of way. I think I was a little more obsessive about health than I am now, thank goodness. But I think if you had asked me at the time, I felt like I was doing something proactive for my health, and I thought that I felt better. I think looking back now, food wasn't really the issue. And I think as time went by, I came to realize that food wasn't really the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think much changed in terms of how my body felt. But I think at the time I thought a lot had changed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, really, really cool story, and I think many of our listeners can relate that the plant-based diet and the reason we decide to go in that on that journey isn't singular. There's
no, and you become more in touch with the truth of it over time. So again,
Yeah, well
like
said.
I think I first got curious about veganism for reasons that I believed were health motivated. Over time, the thing that has kept me vegan is more ethics, right? Like I would not have remained vegan if I hadn't continued to feel strongly about the ethics of the lifestyle. So that's what keeps me vegan.
Yeah.
And I think that is usually the thing with people who've been plant-based for a very long time. That's very often the anchor for them. Rather than health motivation. But everyone's different. And there are some health-motivated vegans who are vegan for a very long time also and have a great experience with that.
Well, let's get to the book. The title says it all. Grains, Greens, and Beans. How are these the building blocks, of this plant-based diet that your lifestyle, your life?
Yeah. When I was working on this book, I really thought of it as kind of a return to my roots. It's funny that we were just talking about when I became vegan and started identifying as vegan, because really at the time, like, it wasn't as easy to eat out.
Yeah.
And so like the places I would go were like Angelica Kitchen. It was Suad
Shout
back,
out.
the Suad. I know there's still one in the East Village, but it was the one in Soho, like where they had this like lunch special that was like $8 and a ton of food and amazing.
Yeah.
It was all these places where you would go, and a lot of them revolved around sort of like you would pick rice or a grain of some kind. There would be proteins. There would be like beans that they had simmered that day, or they would have like tempeh. Angelica Kitchen used to have the best tempeh, or like tofu. And then there would be some sort of vegetable and a sauce. And like, of course, I've evolved out of just green bowls on repeat. But like that was a lot of how I got acquainted with what I consider to be sort of the building blocks of a plant-based diet. And they are nutritious. They're relatively inexpensive, even in this day and age, like legumes and grains. And they add up to really good nutrition together. And I hadn't really grown up eating a variety of whole grains or legumes. Really, I had grown up with some, but like I didn't have a lot of familiarity. And that was really sort of what informed my early experience.
You mean like how legumes are cooked around the world and like the different culinary
or even
tendencies?
different types. Like,
I see.
You know what I mean? I think I had like black beans or maybe some chickpeas growing up, but like I had not really had different kinds of beans.
Pinto? You didn't dabble in the pintos?
Not really.
Interesting.
No. And like, I guess my diet just like hadn't been all that varied or expansive. And so veganism actually introduced me to a lot of stuff I wasn't eating. I know sometimes when people become vegan, it's like a narrowing or they fear it will be a narrowing. But for me, I was actually eating way more types of things than I had before. So I was thinking a lot about places like Angelica. I was thinking a lot about just sort of my earliest vegan dishes at home, which was like I would make bulgur wheat with veggies and like beans in it, and then I would just like put a sauce on it. I was thinking about those sort of simple homey meals, and I was thinking about how nowadays I have so many more options than I did then. I have all the vegan meats, I have vegan cheeses that we were just talking about. I have way more restaurant options. I can go to pretty much most great restaurants in New York City now and have like a true entree that is vegan as is.
Oh, absolutely. It's completely, and even fast food too.
Totally. Exactly. Like there's fast casual options. I have so many more options now And yet I still find myself kind of going back to when I'm like stumped on like what to eat, or when I'm meal prepping on the weekend and like trying to just get some stuff in the fridge for the week ahead, I'll often just default to that formula of like some kind of legume, some kind of grain.
Total aside, have you tried Heyday? Do you know Heyday? The canned beans and sauce.
Oh,
It's like
no,
a
but I think I've seen
emerging
them at Whole
brand.
Foods. They look really good.
They're really
yeah,
good.
they
I
look
love
really
that
good.
brand. I'm a huge fan of what they're doing. I think that the pre-made sauces that the beans are in are
Make a big difference.
so delicious.
Yeah, I've seen those and want to try them. There are some that come in like pouches.
Yeah.
Like A Dozen Cousins makes really
Yep.
yummy black beans. There's a brand on Amazon, I think, called Bean Vivo. That's like the same idea. And then Wegmans has like sort of like their own version of the canned in sauce ones, and they have like a cannellini bean with
Oh yeah.
like olive oil and red peppers. I think that's going to be key too, because I only buy canned beans. I don't enjoy making them from scratch, and I don't feel strongly about boiling them.
Yeah.
But I do think it makes a difference when they come with some seasoning, because that is the difference between you have to like make a sauce of your own versus you can literally just add the beans to a bed of rice and whatever and call it a meal.
I agree. I think that it's getting better and better, and shout out to Wegmans.
Oh, totally.
Like
yeah,
for our East Coast listeners out there, it's one of the best.
Yeah.
All right, I want to talk about the discourse around protein maxing from a clinical professional. You know, we have lots of thoughts on this show about protein. It's really is the zeitgeist, getting the correct grams of protein. My question for you is two parts. First, is this whole idea of eat more protein good? And the second question is, it seems like our tendency with this protein maxing is to go towards animal products first and not think about plant-based protein because we're not getting the macros that we think we need.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny. This is like what happens when you're not on TikTok. I don't know what protein maxing is. I have like no idea what that means.
Great. I'm so glad I'm breaking this idea. It's
no clue.
Yeah.
No clue. But I assume that just means like trying to get a lot of protein.
Yeah,
is that what that means?
Says it in the name. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I do know that we're in a sort of protein focused moment. Protein is having more than a moment.
Yeah.
It's like on everyone's mind.
It's the Chalamet of macros.
100%.
Yeah.
So the question of whether or not it's healthy, like most nutrition, we always want answers to nutrition questions to be simple, and they never are. They're always like super nuanced. It's one of the hard things about being a nutrition professional. Everyone wants you to give them like a good soundbite, and the answer is always like, it's complicated, you know, but
not the best for podcasts.
Not the best for anything. It's hard to message on social media. It's hard to talk to my clients about. Like, unfortunately, nutrition is pretty new.
But that's also like the reason you're a trained professional versus a TikToker who is not a trained professional.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, look, you know, we have an RDA for protein. I would say that the RDAs for macronutrients like protein, carbs, and fat are, they're a little bit less clear cut than some of the RDAs we have for micronutrients like vitamins and minerals, right? Because what we know is that people around the world do eat pretty different proportions of macronutrients, and people seem to thrive with many different approaches. There are people who culturally, like in their culture, they might eat more carbohydrates and get less protein on average. There are also cultures and places around the world where people are eating more protein and fewer carbs, and they also seem to be thriving. So it's very hard for us to know like what is mandatory for good health, right? But we do have a general sort of recommendation, which is, and you've probably heard this, 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight per day for adults, right? And then it is a sort of known fact that there are populations of people who will need more. So what we're starting to realize is that for older adults, in order to prevent sarcopenia, we want protein intake to be a little higher. We usually say 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram for that population of folks, right? And then there are populations of patients in hospital settings or just medical settings who we also know they need more protein. So dialysis patients, for example, generally we say 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilogram. That's sort of like a high protein diet that is geared towards someone on dialysis. There are people who need less. So people who have chronic kidney disease that has not progressed to renal failure, they actually need lower protein diets because that's what's appropriate for their kidneys. So in other words, like there are situations where you might need less. But it's worth saying that in a sort of medical context, 1.2 to 1.5 grams is considered like a quite high protein diet.
Yeah.
I am now seeing stuff online that's suggesting that much more than that is like the only okay thing for people who want to be fit and healthy and thriving. And I would say that that's an exaggeration of what we know and probably unnecessary. I don't know that aiming, if you're a sort of healthy adult who would prefer to aim for 1.5 grams per kilogram rather than 0.8 because you are especially athletic or just because you're especially concerned with maintaining lean muscle mass, I'd say go for it. But we do know that at the extreme side of that, people who are eating extremely high protein diets, especially if they have any susceptibility to kidney stuff, there are downsides to extremely high protein diets. And again, I'm talking about like people who
We're talking about keto.
Right. Or people who are aiming well beyond the sort of 1.5 gram per kilogram. But yeah, there are downsides. You might end up taking in a lot more saturated fat because you're eating a lot of red meat to make that work, sort of ripping off of the keto example there. You might end up, all that protein might end up crowding out carbohydrates and vegetables and whole grains and legumes from your diet, which will bring your fiber intake down. That's not so great for us either. And then again, there's the sort of potential consequences for kidney health. So there are downsides. I think the truth is probably that if you would like to, you could go above that 0.8 gram per kilogram recommendation. But you don't have to go too much higher.
Yeah. I mean, can we get enough protein with a plant-based diet? And I guess the original question was like, it seems like we just assume that animal-based protein is like the big capital P protein.
Yeah, totally. There is some truth to the fact that we call these HBV proteins or high biologic value proteins. Animal proteins are a little bit easier for our bodies to digest and assimilate. So there's a little bit of truth there, but does that mean that you can't meet your protein needs on a plant-based diet? No, of course not. It means that you might want to boost your protein intake above that standard recommendation a little bit to account for the fact that the plant-based proteins are a little bit harder to assimilate. So I generally recommend that vegans get 1 gram per kilogram as a starting point, just because the proteins themselves are a little harder for our bodies to digest and utilize. So there's that, But aside from that, you can meet your needs through plant-based foods. There are a lot of high-protein plant-based foods. I think one of the challenges is that people sometimes need to expand their understanding of what plant-based proteins are. So I know I just wrote a cookbook all about beans, but listen, like half a cup of beans has about 8 grams of protein, maybe 7, maybe 9, whereas, a piece of chicken can have up to 30.
Or like zero fat Greek yogurt.
Right, exactly. So there is a difference in scale. And I think that doesn't mean that we shouldn't love and rely on beans for protein, but it may mean that you want to also look at other plant-based proteins like seitan and tempeh and tofu. And there are other plant-based proteins that are more protein-rich per serving. I think tempeh has 15 or 18 grams per serving. Seitan usually has 18 grams. Vegan meats will usually have about 20 grams per serving. I know a lot of folks don't like them, but all I'm saying is that there are other options that pack a little bit more of a protein punch. So if you're getting a solid foundation of grains and beans and you want to kind of just eat a little bit more protein beyond that, there are things you can try that are pretty tasty and will expand on what you're doing. Are
you one of those folks who is down with the vegan meats?
Yeah, I love vegan meats. They're yummy. I think they taste good. I haven't eaten meat really in a very long time.
Yeah.
And so for me, the texture is a fun novelty. The taste is a fun novelty. I don't think they have to be the backbone of anyone's diet. But again, I think they make it easy to boost your protein intake. I think that from a texture and flavor perspective, they're fun. What I often hear from folks is well, no, if I'm going to eat plant-based foods, the point is to not eat meat. I'm going to just eat vegetables and beans. And I'm well, sure, but maybe spoken like someone who will eat meat again at some point. If you're a longtime plant-based eater and you don't plan to ever eat chicken or meat again, those foods fill a kind of craving or a nostalgia that's really nice. I find it really sort of fun and nostalgic to eat them.
I think you're right. It's definitely that like memory of childhood or wherever it may be,
Totally.
having that, that Morningstar Farm patty, whatever.
100%.
It's really interesting that we're talking about protein, because if you walk into any like New York bodega, I mean, how many protein drinks are there?
My God, I know.
Hundreds. And I want to ask you, like, are these like good, not good, okay? Because I'm always challenged, because it's a really great way to get protein and have
Yeah.
calories if you're on the run, if you're busy, kind of like a meal replacement. We've talked about Soylent before on the show. Like that's another one. But like, what do you think as a professional about these bottled protein drinks?
Yeah. It's funny because, I mean, dietitians in clinical settings, we're giving people oral nutrition supplements, which is what we call them, but basically like liquid nutrition supplements all the time. In hospital settings, it's often Ensure or other options there. But so like we're all very familiar with the notion of like a bottled drink. I see them as serving a purpose, which is kind of what you just said.
Yeah.
If you're traveling and you're just not eating the way you normally do, you're not as able to pay attention to your sort of the balance of your nutrition as usual, for sure, grab a couple of them. They're great at airports, or if you're trying to grab like a protein-rich breakfast on the go. I think that's great. I think the rest of the time, to me, and I'm not a purist about avoiding processed food at all as far as dietitians go. I'm like pretty relaxed about everything. I think there's a place for everything in everyone's diet. But like, I do sort of think when you can default to just sensible food sources of any nutrient, that's kind of better than a supplement. Like, or at least it makes a little more sense to me than going straight for a supplemental form. So I usually encourage my clients to try to get their protein from whole foods or whole-ish foods whenever possible. And then if the drinks make it easy to fill in gaps or to deal with kind of like busy days, emergency circumstances, travel, etc., go for it. I don't think there is any problem with them. I don't think they're bad. But I also think that they can become a little bit of a crutch. And it's also good to take a look at your diet and look at the variety of your diet and ask yourself, like, am I finding nutritious, creative, varied ways of meeting my protein intakes in my diet, rather than just kind of like leaning on these drinks as a quick solution.
Well said. I want to get some recipes, because you have some terrific recipes. I love this conversation, just talking about the trends of eating, but you're also, a very, very, very good recipe writer, and this book is filled with so many great recipes. And I love that you are thinking about the cake. And we're talking about freekeh chickpeas and herb cake. Yeah. I love that, because I think frittering and caking is a really, really smart way to get rid of a lot of things you have in the pantry. Tell me about your philosophy around pattying, caking, whatever you want to call it.
I'm delighted that you're asking this, because actually for a while, like I had this thing where I was just like really anti-veggie burger. Basically what I would tell everyone, I was like, I don't quite get it. If I make veggie burgers at home, usually the recipes call for like 20 different ingredients. I spend like an hour and a half making them.
Yeah.
I bake them, and then it's just this thing that I probably could buy, and I just spent like 2 hours on it. And it never used to make that much sense to me. And I think that was like partly the recipes I was using. And I think partly I was just like, I was being a little too overly ambitious in the way I was approaching the notion of a veggie burger. I was trying to get it just right. And I think what I realized as I was developing this book is like fritters and cakes are like, they're a little bit of a lighter lift than a veggie burger. I think the word burger brings up a lot of really specific expectations.
Yeah, like the grill marks.
100%. And like the texture has to be just so, whereas like the idea of just like a bean fritter, it's very open to interpretation. That could mean a lot of different textures and a lot of different levels of involvement. And yeah, if you just mash up some beans with some sweet potato, or the like half cup of cooked whole grain that you have left over from a batch of rice or a batch of bulgur or freekeh or whatever, and you mash them up and you just either pan fry them or bake them, you do have this like nice, firm little package. And they become a great vehicle for those odds and ends. I think, again, there's just like less of an expectation than a veggie burger, and you can put a lot fewer ingredients into them, and they're great. So I became a big fan through this book.
What's the saucing?
And sauce is like important. I do think sauce is important if you're going to make something really simple, like if you're just going to mash up some some beans and grains and seasonings, a sauce will probably help to elevate. So I usually have like a batch of tahini sauce of some kind in my fridge. Sometimes it's just a bottle of ketchup.
Oh, yeah.
Some mustard. Like the sauce does not have to be ambitious.
Ketchup, man. If
Ketchup
you have like
is
a dry
so good.
burger, it's so good.
It's so good. Why is it so good?
Yeah. And like, do you have a brand that you go with?
No, I usually get like whatever is not too expensive, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, I think people tend to make a big deal of like the sugar and condiments, but frankly, and that's fine if you want to, but like the amount of sugar in even a very conventional ketchup, if you're really having a tablespoon or two, is not astronomical. So I don't think that like the micro differences between brands are all that vast. I've had the like fancier ketchups and they taste really good, but they're also kind of pricey.
Yeah,
I don't know that it makes that much of a difference.
Oh yeah, I love that you're being chill about some of these big questions we had. Like, should I have that ketchup for the sugar?
Right. I think people get very hung up on like the amount of sugar in like peanut butter or ketchup or a vinaigrette. And I understand. I think it really freaks people out, the notion that there's sort of like hidden sugar. But I think you also have to look at the net amount of sugar in these foods.
Yeah.
And it usually doesn't add up to too much. And I think that if these store-bought condiments make your life easier and they make food taste better, they encourage you to eat things that are nutritious, you know, like a wholesome bean fritter. Like, you should keep the big picture in mind and not worry too much about the minutia.
Let's talk about cooking with tempeh.
Yeah.
Because for some, they've never done it. Like, it's like you hear about it, but... And for others, it's like a foundation to protein, as you mentioned, and flavor. How do you think about cooking with tempeh?
I love tempeh so much. It's probably my favorite plant protein.
Seems that way from the book.
Yeah. I really, really love it. It's kind of an acquired taste. I know that the texture and taste are sort of specific, but I think that if you acquire that taste, it's pretty awesome. And the protein is like very, very good. So I love that about it. You know, for years, I was one of those people who was like, no, you don't have to steam tempeh. Some people believe that if you steam it before you marinate it or season it, that will both take away some of the tempeh's natural bitterness and also make it easier for it to absorb flavor and absorb like a marinade. And for years, I was sort of like, no, I think that's one of those things people say, but you don't really need to do it. And now I've kind of come around. I have to say, I started doing it mostly just to challenge my own. I was like, I think I'm being a little bit pat and facile about my rejection of this. Maybe I need to try it before I decide that it's unnecessary. And then I started steaming it and I was like, oh, this does make a difference.
Pretty good, yeah.
So I do tend to steam it now and then I'll marinate it. Usually I end up baking it. But a sort of shortcut and like maybe hybrid method of cooking it is you can also simmer tempeh in like broth and tamari before you do anything else with it.
Yeah.
And that'll actually like some of that savoriness and saltiness will seep into the tempeh before you do anything else, before you crumble it and add it to a pasta or before you bake it or before you do whatever you're going to do with it. And that is sometimes a little bit less of a time commitment than like steaming it, then marinating it, then cooking it. So that's become my little hack that I do at home. I just kind of simmer it in broth and a little bit of soy sauce or tamari, and then I'll do other stuff with it.
The book is A Grain, a Green, a Bean. Huge fan of this book. It's really, really fun.
Thank you.
Really, really smart stuff. Last question. Superiority Burger, what do you think?
Oh, I think it's great. Although I have to admit, I haven't been to the new one.
Oh,
I just have memories of the old one. Yeah. It's so near me, but when it first opened, the lines were like really long.
Yeah. It's on Resi now.
It's on Resi now. And I think I was sort of like, oh, I don't want to go wait in line. I know you can go at lunch, but I don't tend to eat out at lunch a lot. Like,
you're working.
Yeah, exactly. So total transparency, I haven't been since before the reboot, but I think I certainly follow them on Instagram and think they're doing really creative,
for
cool
plant-based
things.
in New York, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I think they're just like creative and thoughtful and like fun. I think they have a little bit of whimsy built into their approach. Sure. I like that. So big fan of what they do.
Gina Hamshaw, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
It was so nice to meet you, Matt. Thanks for having me today.
This Is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.